Welcome to my interior design kids club with me, Gwendolyn, a professional interior designer. Today I'm going to teach you how to knit a little blanket for your doll's house box bedroom. So this is the bed that we've made so far. So we have our bed, the mattress, the quilt and the quilt cover, and now we're going to make a little blanket that we can tuck under, and we can have lots of different styles to make it Insta worthy for all those different pictures. So the first thing you need to think about is getting some wool. So this is wool that you can just buy on the internet. This is something that I've made already. If you have a look at that stitching, so that was made with these needles. There, look, they've got a little horse on, so cute. And they're 7.5 millimeters. Now, I think, for me personally, that looks a bit too chunky, that kind of knitting. I think it looks too chunky for the bed. Look at that. Yeah, it's a bit too big. So the next thing I tried was chopstick. And this is a chopstick, for a special one for a child. You'll see it's got different ridges here, so it helps them learn how to hold a chopstick properly. So I used the end of the chopstick for that, and that gave me this. Oh, that's so cute, isn't it? Look at that size of stitching compared to that size of stitching. Look at the two of them together. So this is a lot tighter, and I think that looks nicer when it's on the bed. I think that's about the right size. So today I'm going to use these chopsticks. Now I haven't tried these before, but these are something that you might have in your cupboard. Very easy to find, very easy to buy in the supermarket. So if you haven't got knitting needles, just get some chopsticks, and we're going to use those. So today we're just going to do basic knitting, and you're going to produce a little square which will be your blanket for your bed. You can also use this method to create a blanket for your own bed. So I created lots of these little squares in various pink colours and sewed them all together and made a blanket for my daughter when she went to university, and she still loves it today. So this method, although we're doing it miniature, tiny, you can use this method to create little squares, sew them all together, and then make a big, lovely patchwork blanket for your own bed. So as I've said, the first thing we need is your knitting needles, and I'm using chopsticks. Now you'll notice the proper needles have got this stop on the end, and that's to stop your wool from slipping off the end, because these are quite slippy, so that it's easier for the wool to go up and down. I'm only doing a little blanket today, so I don't need anything on the end, but if you wanted, you could put maybe some blue tack on the end to stop the wool coming off, or a cork, anything like that to stop the end. So oh, this is exciting. First thing, with these chopsticks, they are a bit rough. So if you rub them together, you can get rid of those, like those little woody bits there. Can you see it? There. Get rid of those. Just rub them together. There, and that means you're not going to get splinters in your fingers, and you won't get splinters and wood bits in your knitting as well. So let's do that. So the next thing I'm going to do is, this is my wool that I'm going to use today. So this might be a knitted jumper that you already have. So we're going to take it apart and we're going to use this wool, reuse it, because it might be that you haven't got anything actually in your house. So let's just undo the knots. Probably this one's easier. That's it. And unravel it. To take it out of that one. This is quite good fun. So today, as I said, we're just going to do basic knitting. We're not going to do any of that fancy stuff because I can't do any of that fancy stuff. You have to know what you're good at. I can knit, but just basic knitting. So my sister, she can do all that fancy stuff, all those tiny little beautiful baby outfits. And my mum was a good knitter as well, but hey, I can sew. Sewing is my speciality. But knitting is basic. But that's okay, because it still works. So, what I need to do now is wind all of this wool up into a little ball. And that just stops it from getting knotted up and from getting dirty. Grab the other end. So maybe you haven't tried knitting before, so this is a really good exercise. Just have a go, just try it out. Get yourself some chopsticks and a bit of wool and try it out. And then if you like it, you can try to do more difficult things, or you can, you know, buy yourself some proper knitting needles. So let's make a little ball. So we just take it one way, around your fingers. That's it. And when it gets a bit full like that, take it off your fingers, hold it in the middle and start the thread going around the other side. And that will make a nice little ball. Quite relaxing. It's a nice little rhythm you get into when you're knitting. Knit, 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 knit. I always remember my mum used to knit when I started doing my ballet lessons. I was about 9 years old when I started ballet. I was a bit older than some other people who were like maybe 3 and 4 years old when they started dancing. And she would sit there with the other women and they would knit whilst me and my sisters had our dance lesson. And it's really really weird watching people knit, because different people have got different ways of holding the needles. So my mum used to hold them like this, quite normal like that. And then one of the women used to have them underneath her armpits. I remember her. And then she would just like knit with the end of them. But she was so quick. She was really, really quick. It was like, whereas me, I'm like this. Quite slow, but hey, I can still do it. So when you're using your needles or your chopsticks, find a way that's comfortable for you. So let's have a go at this. Oh, I'm excited. I'm going to move this out of the way for the moment. So you need some kind of knitting needles. If you want, you can put some blue tack on the bottom to stop the wool from coming off. You need your wool. So that's my little ball that I've created. So you could buy wool, or you could have a woolen jumper and then, you know, just unravel it and make a little ball like I have. And then a pair of scissors you'll need at the end as well. I just thought I do need my little bed here to take my measure. So the first thing you need to do is make a little loop like this, and then one needle is going to go in there like that, and then the other needle, so we're going to do, it's called casting on. So you cast on a certain number of stitches, and that's going to be your baseline for when you start. So when I started this one, I had 20 stitches, and I think that's a bit small. Doesn't really, I want it to go over and drape over my bed. So I'm going to try 25 stitches with this. We'll see how that comes out. Or I could try 30, 20. Let's see first of all, because this might actually be a bit tighter than that stitching. Remember, it's all about tension. As with sewing, it's all about tension as to what you're going to create. So let's try. I haven't tried these needles before, these chopsticks, only for a chicken chow mein. So see how that goes. So you have your loop. Now I'm right-handed, so I start with my loop in my left hand. So with my right hand, I'm going to take my chopstick and it's going to go in to the loop, and then actually first, before that, I'm going to hold, you see this little bit, I'm going to hold that with my thumb and finger so it doesn't go moving all around the place. And then with my chopstick, I'm going to go in the loop. Okay, just from where I am, I'm going in the loop and underneath the other chopstick. Hold that with my thumb, because now I need this hand. You have to be good at using chopsticks, actually. This is quite good. This is going to help you when you need your chopsticks for your chicken chow mein. So with this wool, you bring it around that bottom one, and then hold on to that little bit, and then as it's coming out, you're going to take the end of the right hand needle and then just bring it up, and then you pull it out a bit, and then you put that on to the left hand side. Okay, and now we've got 2 stitches. Ooh, ooh. Let's do that again. So with that new stitch, it is a bit difficult doing it with chopsticks because they've got a bit of a square end rather than a rounded end. Not to worry, we will persevere. So we go in to the loop underneath that left hand chopstick. We're going to hold it there and then take our wool, come around that bottom chopstick, and as we draw it out, we're going to make sure that we come up through the gap and pull it out, and then put it on the chopstick, on that left hand chopstick. And that's it. So let's do that a few more times, shall we? You need to get used to it. It takes a while. Don't worry if it takes a while to do, because it's taken me absolutely years to get to this stage. So there's a little rabbit. He's going into the hole, but he's going underneath the ground, so he's going underneath that chopstick, and then he gets covered in a lovely blanket, and then as he's coming out, he doesn't want to lose the blanket, so he has to make sure that he pops his head out first before he pulls it up. There we go. Did you like that little story? Let's try it again. So we have the rabbit goes into the hole, he gets the blanket around it, he doesn't want to lose it, so as he's coming out, he makes sure that he pops his head up, keeps the blanket wrapped around him, and then pops it on the left hand side one. So now we've got 3, 4, 5 stitches. Let's do some more. In the hole, underneath, wrap the wool around, bring it out, make sure you don't lose it, and then cast that stitch on again. It is quite difficult doing it with square ones, but it still works, doesn't it? It's still working, it's not a problem. If that's all you've got, it's fine. Make it work. There we go. how many stitches? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe I'll fast forward this bit. So I've got 25 stitches. Now my knitting's quite a bit loose, which means that as I knit it gets a bit wider than it started out. So I think I'm going to stick with 25 stitches. If I compare that to the size of my quilt and quilt cover, do I go to 30? Make it a bit wider. I think I do. I'll add 5 more stitches on. One last stitch and that's 30. Right, 30 stitches. So that's casting on. So I'll have the number of stitches that I want to make it long enough for my quilt cover. So if I'm a bit loose on my stitching, then that means it's actually going to be wider than this quilt cover, which is what I want. And then we're going to do some knitting, and this is just plain knit. So it's quite similar to casting on, but the end of it's a bit different. So let me show you that. So with that first stitch, again, as you do with casting on, you go in through the hole, take it around, and then as you come out, instead of putting it on the left hand needle, we're actually going to put it on the right hand needle. So it's going to, let me make some space so you can see, it's going to come up, and then I'm going to slide the left bit up, so it's going to, oh, it's a bit tight, that comes off the left hand and goes onto the right hand. Let me show you that again. It's difficult with chopsticks. They're not very slip slidey like normal needles. So we're going in, around. As we bring it out, we then pop it off that left hand chopstick or needle if you have one, knitting needle. So we go in, around, bring it out, and then this time the rabbit wants to keep the blanket, or if it goes over to the right hand side. So we go in, around. As the rabbit comes out, he wants to keep that blanket this time. So we pull it off that side. Just make sure this left hand, you've got your finger there on the next loop to stop that one coming off as well. You don't want all of them coming off, which has happened to me quite a few times. So we're going to go in and around and take the blanket off. Okay, take that stitch off because a rabbit wants a blanket, and we just keep doing that. In, around, rabbit wants the blanket. In and around, and the rabbit wants the blanket. In, around, in, around. As it comes out, the rabbit wants the blanket. In, around. As we come around, the rabbit wants the blanket. Now make sure you're not pulling this too tight, this wool on this side, because otherwise you'll find it gets quite difficult to move. So that's your tension. So you need to make sure it's not too loose, so it's all sloppy. We don't want a sloppy blanket, and we also need to make sure it's not too tight, because then it's going to be difficult for you to move the stitches and to move your knitting up and down the needles. So you may need to practice that a little bit just to get the right tension that feels comfortable for you. Remember, you know, if this is the first time you've done it, then good. You're doing really great. Okay, we'll work on this together. Might take a bit of practice, and you might be really good at it straight away, which means that you don't need chopsticks. You can go straight on to the knitting needles. I just need to move this down the needle a little bit because it's getting a bit full, and I don't want it popping off the end there and having to do it all again. Around, rabbit goes in, blanket goes around. As it comes up, rabbit keeps the blanket. Whoa. 3 more on this side. There. Now it looks a bit ragged, so one thing you need to do is just pull that bit down, and then that will make it nice and straight. Yeah, and gets rid of all that raggedness. Always make sure it's nice and straight before you start the next one. So then this one then becomes my left hand, and this empty one goes into my right hand, and we start all over again. So rabbit goes in the hole. What happens? He wants the blanket. Just get rid of that little bit from the end. He wants the blanket. There, so he comes out of the hole and takes the blanket. Rabbit goes in, wrap the blanket around. There we go. Okay, and rabbit goes in, blanket around. As he's coming out, oh, I'll take that blanket, thank you very much. There we go. Now with this left one, you might need to just move the stitches up a little bit, but remember to keep that finger there, stop them coming off. So all the time you're moving the wool and the stitches around on your needles to make sure you've got the right tension, and to make sure that it's easy for them to move, stitches to move up and down your needles or your chopsticks. It's quite good fun using chopsticks actually. I know it's a bit hard because of the square end on them. It is quite unusual, feels quite unusual, quite weird, but good fun. So let's get to the end of this. So this is just called, it's just plain knitting. There's lots of other fancy stitches you can do. My mum used to do, you know, this knitting, knit one, purl one, cable stitch. What else do I remember? Don't think I remember any other stitches. There's loads of fancy names and different ways of doing it. But I know my limits. This is my limit. But hopefully you'll be better than me. Nearly at the end. Last one on this side. Again, it looks a bit scruffy, so just knitting it out. Now you've got the gist of it. I'm going to fast forward this and do the rest of the stitches. So I've been knitting away, and this is what I have so far. It's quite nice actually. I quite like these chopstick knitting needles. And I'm coming to the end of my wool, so I need to leave enough to cast off, which is what we're going to do now. That's how we finish it. So we do the beginning of it quite similar. So we're going to knit 2 stitches. So remember, we go in, quite difficult with these square ends. We go in underneath the top one, we go around, the rabbit wants the blanket, takes the blanket, and then we take it off there. Yeah, again, so we do 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Make sure your finger's on that one so it's not going to come off. And then with these 2 stitches, we're going to take this bottom one over the top and take it off the needle. So that back stitch, we have to be really careful, because make sure that first stitch doesn't come off. Yeah. So then we're going to, we've already got 1 stitch on there, so we need another stitch from the left hand side. So we're going to go in, blanket around, rabbit takes the blanket off, so we've got 2 stitches. So this bottom one comes over the top and off that needle, just that bottom stitch. How can I show you? Do it that way, try and you see that? This bottom stitch is coming over there and off the needle. Yeah, so we do that again. Do that all the way along. And this is called casting off, this bottom stitch over the top. Still try and keep that other stitch on there. There we go, all the way along. I hope you enjoyed this knitting. It's quite therapeutic. It may take a while to get used to it. So hopefully this will be easy for you to just have a little go. And you see what it does, so that just creates this finishing edge. So you begin by casting on, and then you do your knitting, your general knitting, just using the basic stitch. That's all you need. If you are clever and you can do other stitches, then of course, please do make it nice and fancy. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to try and find at the end, I'm going to go and see if I can find some nice grey ribbon in my ribbon box, and then I will stitch that around the edges, because I think that will make it look a bit more luxurious. But I'll have to show you that another day, because I'm not too sure if I have any grey ribbon, and I don't want you hanging around waiting for me. And you know how to stitch now anyway, don't you, from when we did the quilt? So you'll be able to stitch it on if you want to do that, or you could do, you know, different pattern in it, with some embroidery threads. You could plique some fabric on, a heart or teddy bear or whatever you want. You could plique some fabric on it, sew some fabric on, or you could just have it plain like this, because I think it looks nice as it is. This is a nice stitch from these chopsticks. I've been very impressed actually. So you see, as we're going along, it's just coming apart and it's all looking great. Finishing off. There we go. few more stitches. So that's the lesson for today, teaching you how to knit and also creating a miniature blanket for your doll's house box bedroom. If you wanted, like I did for my daughter, you could create lots of different squares in different colours. So I used a variety of different pinks because she loves pink, and then I stitched them all together and created a blanket for her bedroom at university, which she loves. So I've just got that amount of wool left. So with the last, let me put that down, with the last piece of wool, I'm just going to take this thread and pop it through that hole, and then that will just create a knot and finish it off. Ooh. So that is my blanket. I will sort these out later, just cut them off and make sure they're nice and neat. And then my blanket will go on my bed like that. I can even tuck it in. Oh, that looks really sweet. Doesn't that look nice? Hey? Oh, that looks lovely. So have a go at that. I hope you've enjoyed my Interior Design Kids Club today, and join me again for the next lesson. Have fun.